My name is Myrtle. I am 67 years old, and I never thought my only son would betray me like this. Being locked in a bathroom for 2 days changes you. It makes you realize who truly loves you and who sees you as nothing but a checkbook. When Gregory locked that door, he had no idea I would sell the house right from under him. If you are watching this video, leave a comment telling me what you would do if a family member betrayed you this way. Do not forget to like and subscribe to follow my journey of leaving behind a painful past. I spent 35 years as an elementary school teacher in a small suburban neighborhood outside of San Francisco. My classroom was my second home, filled with bright young minds eager to learn. I loved every minute of it, watching children grow and develop under my guidance. The walls of my classroom were always covered with colorful artwork and inspiring quotes. My students would often return years later to thank me for the impact I had on their lives. My husband Robert was my rock for 42 wonderful years. He worked as an electrical engineer for a large tech company, always bringing home fascinating stories about new inventions and technological breakthroughs. We built a comfortable life together in our modest 3-bedroom home on Maple Street. The house had a beautiful garden that Robert and I tended together on weekends, growing roses that won neighborhood awards several summers in a row. When Robert died suddenly of a heart attack 15 years ago, it felt like the ground beneath my feet had disappeared. One minute we were planning our retirement trip to Europe, and the next I was planning his funeral. The grief was overwhelming, but I had my son Gregory to lean on during those dark days. Robert left me financially secure with a paid-off house and a small but comfortable nest egg from his life insurance and our savings. We had always been careful with money, making sure we would be comfortable in our golden years. Gregory was our only child, born after several years of trying to conceive. From the moment he arrived, he was the center of our universe. Robert coached his little league teams, and I never missed a single school performance or parent-teacher conference. Gregory was a bright, charming boy who made friends easily and excelled in school. I still remember how proud Robert and I were at his high school graduation when he was named valedictorian. That same pride swelled when he graduated from Stanford with a business degree. By his 45th birthday, Gregory had established himself as a successful real estate developer in the Bay Area. He married Patricia, a lovely woman who worked as a pediatric nurse, and they gave me 2 beautiful grandchildren, Emma and James. Emma inherited my love for books and art, while James had his father's analytical mind and his grandfather's engineering curiosity. Watching them grow was one of the greatest joys of my life. Our family dinners every Sunday became the highlight of my week after Robert passed away. Gregory would grill in the backyard while Patricia and I prepared sides in the kitchen, catching up on life and sharing stories. The grandchildren would show me their latest school projects or tell me about their adventures with friends. These moments filled the void that Robert left behind, giving me purpose and connection. I sacrificed so much for Gregory throughout his life. When he needed money for his first apartment after college, I dipped into my savings without hesitation. When he wanted to start his own business, Robert and I co-signed his loan. Every milestone in his life was supported by our unwavering belief in his potential. I always thought that love flowed both ways in our family, that the sacrifices were recognized and valued. The first signs that something was changing came about 3 years ago. Gregory started canceling our Sunday dinners, citing work emergencies or exhaustion. His calls became less frequent, and when we did speak, he seemed distracted and irritable. I chalked it up to the pressures of running his own business and raising 2 teenagers. Everyone goes through difficult periods, and I wanted to give him space to work through whatever was troubling him. Then Patricia called me one evening, her voice tight with worry. She mentioned financial problems, saying that Gregory had been unusually secretive about their money situation. He had been staying late at the office, coming home agitated and unwilling to discuss what was happening. She was concerned about his drinking, which had increased notably in recent months. I reassured her that Gregory was strong like his father and would find his way through whatever difficulties he was facing. Inside, though, my heart ached with concern for my son. Despite my worries, I maintained my faith in Gregory. He had always been responsible and level-headed, even as a teenager. Whatever storm he was weathering in his professional life, I believed he would navigate it successfully. I decided to give him space while making it clear that I was there whenever he needed me. That approach had worked throughout his adolescence, and I hoped it would serve us well now. The call that changed everything came on a Tuesday morning in April. Gregory asked if he could stop by for coffee. When he arrived, he looked tired with dark circles under his eyes and a tenseness in his shoulders that reminded me of Robert during his most stressful work periods. But his proposal caught me completely off guard. "Mom, I have been thinking," he said, stirring his coffee absently. "This house is too big for you now. You should sell it and come live with us. We have plenty of room and the kids would love having you around more often." The suggestion seemed to come from a place of love, a son wanting to take care of his aging mother. How could I have known it was the beginning of the end of the life I had built? The idea of selling my home initially filled me with resistance. This was the house where Robert and I had built our lives together, where every corner held precious memories. The kitchen where we danced while washing dishes, the living room where we opened Christmas presents with Gregory, the garden, where Robert proposed a second time on our 25th anniversary with a new ring. How could I leave all that behind? But Gregory was persistent. He pointed out logical reasons why moving made sense. The stairs were becoming difficult for my knees. Maintenance costs were rising. The neighborhood was changing with many original owners moving out and younger families moving in. Most compelling was his argument about being closer to my grandchildren during their formative teenage years. "Emma and James need their grandmother," he said, his eyes softening in a way that reminded me of his father. "And honestly, Mom, I could use your wisdom around more often too." After weeks of consideration and several visits to Gregory and Patricia's spacious 5-bedroom home in Marin County, I agreed. Their house had a lovely guest suite on the first floor, with its own bathroom perfect for me. The backyard overlooked rolling hills, and the neighborhood was safe and walkable. Perhaps it was time for a new chapter. The real estate market in the Bay Area was booming, and my home sold quickly for $850,000. The closing process was a whirlwind of paperwork and decisions. Gregory offered to handle the financial aspects, suggesting that he could invest the proceeds through his company to generate better returns than I would get from a standard retirement account. "Property development is still the best investment, Mom," he explained while reviewing documents with me at his kitchen table. "I have several projects that are guaranteed returns. You could double your money in 5 years." I trusted my son completely, signing the papers he presented without questioning the details. After all, he was the financial expert in the family, and he had always been responsible with money. When the funds from the house sale were transferred into an account that Gregory helped set up, I felt a momentary pang of anxiety, but pushed it aside. This was my son, my Gregory. The first few months living with Gregory and his family were pleasant. My suite was comfortable, decorated with my favorite pieces from my old home. I enjoyed helping Emma with her English essays and teaching James how to make Robert's famous pancakes on Sunday mornings. Patricia seemed happy to have another adult in the house, often joining me for coffee in the mornings before her hospital shift started. Yet subtle changes began to appear in our family dynamic. Patricia, once warm and chatty, became increasingly reserved around me. Our morning coffees grew shorter, then stopped altogether as she claimed earlier shifts at the hospital. Gregory insisted on driving me to my doctor appointments and weekly bridge game with friends, saying it was no trouble even though I was perfectly capable of taking the bus as I always had. The first real concern arose when I wanted to donate to my church's building fund. I reached for my checkbook, only to discover that Gregory had taken it for safekeeping. "Just tell me how much you want to give, Mom," he said casually. "I will take care of it." When I asked for my bank statements to review my finances, he brushed off the request, saying he was handling everything, and I should enjoy my retirement without worrying about money matters. My social circle began to shrink as Gregory made excuses for why I could not attend functions with my longtime friends. The bridge club was full of gossips. My book club meeting coincided with a family dinner that could not be rescheduled. My volunteer work at the library was too taxing for someone my age. Gradually, my world contracted to the walls of Gregory's house and the occasional supervised outings he approved. One afternoon, while everyone was out, I went into Gregory's home office looking for stamps. Instead, I found a stack of papers that made my blood run cold. Bank notices threatening foreclosure, credit card statements showing massive debt, letters from investors demanding meetings about failed property developments, business loans in default. The successful real estate empire Gregory had described was a house of cards on the verge of collapse. That evening, I carefully broached the subject during dinner. "Gregory, I found some papers in your office today. Are you having financial troubles that we should discuss?" His face darkened instantly. "You were snooping in my private documents. That is completely inappropriate, Mom." "I was looking for stamps," I explained calmly. "But now I am concerned. If there are problems, perhaps I can help. After all, the money from my house was supposed to be invested." Patricia stared at her plate, while the children exchanged uncomfortable glances. Gregory's forced laugh did nothing to dispel the tension. "Everything is fine, Mom. Just a temporary cash flow issue that all developers face. Your investment is completely secure." His reassurance did little to quiet my growing unease. That night, I lay awake in my bed wondering if I had made a terrible mistake trusting my son with my financial security. The house that had been my safety net was gone, and I had no clear idea where the money had actually gone. Still, I wanted to believe in Gregory. Children sometimes make mistakes, even adult children. Perhaps he just needed time to sort things out. The next morning, while Gregory was in the shower, I used his computer to check my bank accounts. What I discovered sent a chill through my entire body. The account where my house proceeds should have been showed a balance of just $12,000, a fraction of what should have been there. Subsequent transfers to Gregory's business accounts had depleted almost everything. My retirement security had vanished. "Where is my money, Gregory?" I demanded that evening after the children had gone upstairs to do homework. My hands trembled as I placed the bank statements I had printed out on the kitchen table between us. Gregory's expression shifted from surprise to anger to a calculated calm within seconds. Patricia hovered in the doorway, her face pale with apprehension. "Mom, you are misunderstanding the situation," he said, his voice taking on the patronizing tone he had increasingly used with me. "The funds have been temporarily allocated to secure an exceptional investment opportunity. I told you, property development involves moving money around strategically. $800,000 does not just disappear into strategic movements." I countered my teacher voice, emerging the one I had used when catching students in obvious lies. "These statements show systematic transfers to your personal and business accounts over the past 5 months. Gregory's facade cracked slightly. "The market turned unexpectedly. Some investments failed, but I am going to make it all back. You have to trust me. I am doing this for all of us, for our family's future." "Trust." The word tasted bitter in my mouth. "You have been systematically taking my retirement money without my knowledge or consent. That is not trust, Gregory. That is theft." His face flushed red. "How dare you? After everything I have done taking you in, giving you a place to live. This is how you repay me." "With accusations." Patricia finally spoke from the doorway. "Gregory, please calm down. Your mother deserves to know what happened to her money." He whirled on her. "Stay out of this. This is between my mother and me." The argument escalated as Gregory shifted between defiance, self-pity, and deflection. He claimed business losses beyond his control, unfair banking practices, disloyal partners. Never once did he acknowledge the fundamental betrayal of using my money without permission, or the reality that he had essentially stolen my financial security. "I am going to find my own place to live," I finally stated when it became clear no resolution would come from this conversation. "I will take what remains of my money and start over." The threat of my departure triggered something dark in Gregory's expression. "You cannot leave. You have nowhere to go. Besides, the money is tied up in investments. It is not liquid." "Then I will stay with Sarah until I figure things out," I said, referring to my oldest friend who lived in Oakland. "I will call her in the morning." Gregory stormed out of the kitchen, and Patricia gave me a look of mingled sympathy and fear before following him. That night, I began quietly organizing my essential belongings, planning my exit. I would need my birth certificate, social security card, medical records, and the few pieces of jewelry that had sentimental value. Everything else could be replaced. The next morning, I called Sarah while Gregory was taking the children to school. She immediately offered her spare room for as long as I needed it. The relief of having a safe landing place brought tears to my eyes. I scheduled a taxi for the following morning early enough to avoid confrontation with Gregory, but late enough that I would not seem to be sneaking away. When Gregory returned home, he acted as though our argument had never happened. He was unnervingly cheerful, offering to take me shopping and suggesting we plan a family vacation for the summer. His abrupt change in demeanor only strengthened my resolve to leave. That evening, I finished packing a small suitcase, hiding it in my closet behind winter coats. At 11:30 that night, after everyone had gone to bed, I decided to take a shower, wanting to be fresh for my journey the next day. The bathroom in my suite had always been my sanctuary, with its large soaking tub and privacy. I locked the door as usual, turned on the water, and stepped under the warm spray, allowing myself to imagine the freedom that awaited me. When I turned off the water and reached for my towel, I heard a subtle click from the door. Wrapping myself quickly, I tried the handle. It would not turn. I tried again, thinking it might be stuck, but the door remained firmly shut. "Hello?" I called, keeping my voice low to avoid waking the whole house. "Is someone there?" Silence answered me. I knocked lightly then, with increasing urgency. "Gregory, Patricia. The door seems to be stuck." After several minutes of knocking and calling, I heard footsteps approach. "Mom?" Gregory's voice came through the door, artificially confused. "What is wrong?" "The door is stuck or locked. I cannot get out." "That is strange," he replied, jiggling the handle from his side. "It seems to be jammed somehow. Let me see if I can find some tools to fix it." His footsteps retreated, but he did not return. As minutes stretched into an hour, the terrible truth dawned on me. This was no accident. Gregory had deliberately locked me in. I called out more loudly, hoping to wake Patricia or the children, but my suite was at the far end of the house, and the bathroom was interior with no windows. No one would hear me unless they were specifically listening. The night passed in uncomfortable increments as I sat on the closed toilet lid, wrapped in my towel, then later in my robe that had been hanging on the back of the door. I dozed fitfully, jerking awake at small noises, always hoping someone would come to release me. By morning, I was exhausted, hungry, and increasingly frightened. Around what I estimated to be noon the next day, I heard a key in the lock. The door opened slightly, and Patricia's hand appeared holding a sandwich and a bottle of water. "I am so sorry," she whispered, not meeting my eyes. "He thinks you need time to reconsider your decision to leave." I told him this is wrong, but he would not listen. Before I could respond, she closed and locked the door again. I ate the sandwich, slowly rationing the water, uncertain when I might receive more. The bathroom had a sink so I could drink if necessary, but the hunger would be another matter. 2 full days passed this way, with Patricia bringing food twice daily and whispering increasingly distressed apologies. I tried reasoning with her, pleading for her to help me, but fear kept her loyal to Gregory. On the morning of the 3rd day, the door finally opened, fully revealing Gregory standing there with an expression of calculated concern. "I have been thinking about our situation, Mom," he said, as though we were continuing a normal conversation. "I believe we can work things out if you are willing to be reasonable. You cannot just leave our family. We need you here. The children need their grandmother." The false sentimentality disgusted me, but I forced myself to remain calm. Antagonizing him would only extend my captivity. I needed to appear compliant while planning my true escape. "You are right," I lied, hating the words even as I spoke them. I was upset and not thinking clearly. This is my home now, and I should be grateful for everything you have done for me. The relief on his face would have been comical if the situation were not so serious. He truly believed he had won, that breaking my spirit was the same as earning my loyalty. "I knew you would come around," he said, patting my shoulder condescendingly. "Family sticks together, right?" I nodded, already calculating my next move. Gregory had shown his true nature in the most unmistakable way. No mother should fear her own child. Yet here I was planning an escape from the son I had raised with love and sacrifice. The bathroom had become both my prison and my awakening. When I finally stepped out, I was no longer just Myrtle, the devoted mother. I was Myrtle, the survivor, and survivors know how to bide their time. Freedom to move around the house again came with watchful eyes. Gregory installed a new security system that chimed whenever exterior doors opened. He began working from home more frequently, his laptop set up at the kitchen table rather than in his office. My cell phone mysteriously disappeared, with Gregory suggesting I must have misplaced it and offering to buy me a new one that he would set up properly. I declined, knowing any new phone would come with tracking software and restrictions. While Gregory believed he had successfully intimidated me into compliance, I used my apparent surrender to my advantage. I observed the household routines more carefully, noting when Gregory had business meetings he could not miss, and when Patricia took the children to their various activities. I studied the new security system when no one was watching, learning its vulnerabilities. During a rare moment alone in the house, I slipped into Gregory's home office and began a more thorough investigation of our financial situation. Hidden in a locked drawer that I opened with a letter opener was a folder containing documents that confirmed my worst fears and revealed new horrors. The first shock was discovering mortgage papers showing Gregory had taken out a substantial home equity loan against his house, using most of my money from the sale of my home as the down payment. The second shock was finding credit card statements in my name, credit cards I had never applied for or received, with balances totaling nearly $50,000. Identity theft added to his growing list of crimes against me. The third and most disturbing discovery was a draft of a will supposedly written by me, leaving everything to Gregory and designating him as my medical power of attorney with broad decision-making authority. At the bottom was a signature that resembled mine, but was clearly forged. The document was dated just 2 weeks earlier during my bathroom imprisonment. The implications were chilling. If Gregory was willing to forge my will, what else might he be planning? I carefully photographed these documents using an old digital camera I had brought with me when I moved in, one Gregory had dismissed as outdated and unimportant. The camera had become my secret ally, documenting evidence of financial abuse that no one would believe without proof. I returned everything exactly as I had found it and slipped out of the office. That evening at dinner, I maintained my facade of submission while observing Patricia more closely. The strain in her face, the way she avoided extended conversation, the nervous glances she cast at Gregory when he spoke sharply to the children, all pointed to trouble beneath the surface of their marriage. I needed an ally, and Patricia might be my best chance. The opportunity came 3 days later, when Gregory took the children to a baseball game, an outing I was conveniently too tired to attend. As Patricia loaded the dishwasher after their departure, I approached her carefully. "Patricia," I began gently, "I need to ask you something, and I need the truth. Are you afraid of Gregory?" She froze her back to me, hands gripping the edge of the counter. When she turned, her eyes were filled with unshed tears. "You have no idea," she whispered. "He is not the man I married anymore. Everything changed when the Westlake project collapsed last year. We lost millions, and investors were threatening lawsuits. That was when he convinced you to sell your house. Tell me everything," I urged, guiding her to sit at the kitchen table, well away from any windows where we might be seen. Over the next hour, Patricia revealed the extent of Gregory's deception. His real estate business had been failing for years, with each new project funded by increasingly desperate loans and investments from unsuspecting friends and family. My house proceeds had temporarily staved off complete financial ruin, but the money was now gone, squandered on bad investments and luxury expenses Gregory felt entitled to, despite their dire financial situation. "He has been lying to everyone," Patricia said, wiping her eyes. "His business partners, the bank, me, you. We are 3 months behind on our mortgage payments. The car was repossessed last month while you were visiting your church friend. That is why he drives that rental car now." "Why have you stayed?" I asked, though I suspected I knew the answer. "The children," she replied immediately. "And fear. Gregory has changed so much. Sometimes he scares me with his anger. And where would we go? He controls all our accounts. I do not even have access to my own paycheck anymore. Then came the revelation that truly chilled my blood. He has been talking about sending you to live at Sunny Pines, Patricia said, her voice dropping even lower. It is a state-funded nursing home. Terrible place. He thinks if he can declare you mentally incompetent, he can control your Social Security and pension payments. That is why he has been isolating you from your friends, making you seem dependent and confused. I need to leave, I stated simply. Not just for my safety, but for my survival. Would you help me? Patricia looked terrified at the suggestion. I cannot openly defy him. You saw what he did when you tried to leave. I am not asking you to confront him, I assured her. Just small things. Information. Perhaps a phone I could use temporarily. After some hesitation, she agreed to help in limited ways. She slipped me her old cell phone hidden in a box of sanitary products where Gregory would never look. She confirmed the days when Gregory had unmissable appointments outside the house. Most importantly, she promised not to reveal my plans, whatever they might be. That night, as I lay in bed contemplating my next steps, I heard Gregory on the phone in the hallway, his voice low but intense. I crept to my door and listened. Yes, I understand the process takes time, he was saying. But we need to move quickly on this guardianship petition. My mother is showing clear signs of cognitive decline, becoming paranoid, making accusations. No formal diagnosis yet, but that is the next step. Yes, I have power of attorney, but I need the broader authority of legal guardianship, the equity in her property. Well, technically the house is now in my name, but there are complications with the title that guardianship would resolve. As I listened, the final piece of the puzzle fell into place. I recalled signing papers that Gregory had presented as routine title insurance documents for my new living arrangement. With growing horror, I realized he had likely tricked me into transferring ownership of his house into my name, probably to secure loans using my good credit, while simultaneously plotting to control me through legal guardianship. The next morning, I waited until Gregory left for what Patricia confirmed was an important meeting with potential investors. Using the borrowed cell phone, I called the county records office and, after identifying myself, requested information about property in my name. The clerk confirmed my suspicion. I was indeed the legal owner of the house where we all lived, following a title transfer completed 6 months earlier. This unexpected discovery changed everything. The house Gregory had been so desperate to keep me from leaving was, legally speaking, mine. The irony was almost too perfect. In his scheme to use my good credit and assets, Gregory had inadvertently given me the ultimate leverage. Armed with this knowledge and the evidence I had gathered, I knew it was time to act. The predator had become the prey, and he did not even know it yet. The next morning, I called Margaret Thompson, a lawyer who had helped several of my teaching colleagues with their retirement planning. Using Patricia's phone from the privacy of my bathroom, I explained my situation in hushed tones. This is elder abuse, pure and simple, Margaret declared after hearing my story. Financial exploitation, false imprisonment, identity theft, forgery of legal documents, these are serious crimes. Gregory could face jail time. I do not necessarily want my son in jail, I admitted, surprising myself with the maternal instinct that persisted despite everything. I just want my freedom and my remaining assets secured. I understand, but you need to protect yourself first, Margaret advised. Can you come to my office to sign some paperwork? We need to revoke any powers of attorney immediately and start the process of recovering your stolen funds. I explained the challenges of leaving the house undetected, and Margaret agreed to send her paralegal to meet me at a coffee shop during one of Gregory's scheduled absences. Patricia helped arrange this meeting, driving me to what Gregory believed was a doctor's appointment, but was actually my first step toward legal liberation. The paralegal, a discreet young woman named Jennifer, brought documents revoking all powers previously granted to Gregory, and new directives naming Margaret as my temporary financial representative. I signed everything with a steady hand, my resolve growing stronger with each signature. We will file these immediately, Jennifer assured me. The next step will be gathering evidence for potential criminal charges, though that will be your decision whether to pursue. In the meantime, we need to secure your remaining assets. My next stop was the bank. With Patricia waiting nervously in the car, I met with the branch manager, a former parent of one of my students who recognized me immediately. "Mrs. Holloway, so wonderful to see you. How can I help today?" I presented my identification and requested a complete audit of all accounts associated with my Social Security number. The manager's professional smile faded as the computer revealed multiple accounts and credit lines I had never authorized. "This is concerning," he said carefully. "These accounts appear to have been opened using your information, but with electronic authorizations we should verify. And there have been some unusual transfers from your primary accounts. My son has been managing my finances without proper authorization," I explained calmly. "I need to freeze all accounts immediately and transfer any remaining funds to a new account that only I can access." The process took nearly 2 hours, during which Patricia texted twice, increasingly anxious about Gregory discovering our absence. When I finally emerged from the bank, I had secured the remaining $12,000 from my accessible accounts, frozen the fraudulent credit cards, and initiated a fraud investigation that would eventually recover some of my stolen funds. Back at the house, I continued my preparations while maintaining the illusion of submission. Using a prepaid phone card purchased by Patricia, I contacted Janet Wilson, a real estate agent I had known for years. "Janet, I need your absolute discretion," I began after explaining who owned the house. "I want to sell the property quickly, even below market value if necessary. Can you help me?" Janet, always efficient, asked the right questions and understood the urgency of my situation. "I have a client looking for exactly this type of property who can pay cash and close within 2 weeks. They would likely offer around $750,000. The market value is closer to $900,000, but for a quick no-contingency sale, that would be perfect." I agreed, relief washing over me. "How do we proceed without my son's knowledge until absolutely necessary?" We arranged for Janet to conduct the initial assessment when Gregory took the children to their weekend sports activities. She arrived disguised as a county appraiser, clipboard in hand, moving quickly through the house while I kept watch for Gregory's early return. "The property is in excellent condition," Janet confirmed as she prepared to leave. "I will have the offer ready for your signature by Monday. Once you sign, we can close in 10 business days." That evening, Gregory seemed particularly pleased with himself at dinner, boasting about a new potential investor who might solve all our cash flow problems. I smiled and nodded the perfect picture of the supportive mother, while inwardly counting the days until my escape. Monday brought the offer delivered by courier to Margaret's office, where I signed it during another doctor's appointment. The buyers were a professional couple relocating from Seattle who needed to close quickly for work reasons. Their offer of $765,000 cash with no contingencies was a godsend. We set the closing for 10 days later with the stipulation that I would vacate the property by then. Margaret also helped me set up a new bank account at a different institution untraceable to Gregory. We filed police reports regarding the identity theft and financial fraud, though I requested they delay any contact with Gregory until after I had safely relocated. The detective handling the case was sympathetic to my situation and agreed to my timeline, noting that building a stronger case before confrontation would be beneficial anyway. The final piece was securing a new place to live. Using online listings and Janet's connections, I found a modest one-bedroom apartment in a senior living community in Scottsdale, Arizona, far from the reach of Gregory's influence. The community had security gates and staff offering both independence and protection. I paid the deposit and first month's rent from my secured funds, arranging to move in immediately after the house closing. With all pieces in place, I began the careful process of packing essentials without raising suspicion. Small items of jewelry and important documents went into my purse daily when I accompanied Patricia on errands to be stored in a safe deposit box at my new bank. Clothing was sorted under the guise of seasonal cleaning, with the items I wanted to keep packed in suitcases, ostensibly bound for donation, but actually stored in Patricia's trunk until my departure. The night before the house closing, I sat alone in my room looking at old family photos. Pictures of Gregory as a smiling child, his father's arm around his shoulders, his college graduation face beaming with promise and potential, his wedding day when he looked at Patricia with genuine love. What had transformed that bright, loving boy into the manipulative man who would imprison his own mother? The question haunted me, but I knew I would likely never have a satisfying answer. Sometimes people simply make choices that forever alter who they are. I selected a few precious photos to take with me, not of the adult Gregory who had betrayed me, but of the child I had raised with love. Despite everything, that child remained somewhere in my heart, even as I prepared to leave the man he had become. The day of reckoning arrived with appropriate dramatic weather, dark clouds gathering as I finalized my preparations. Gregory had left for what he described as an all-day meeting with investors, actually a sales pitch to potential victims of his next scheme. Patricia had taken the day off work, ostensibly to take me shopping, but actually to help with my escape. The moving company arrived precisely at 9, two discreet men in unmarked vans, who efficiently loaded the few pieces of furniture I had claimed as mine, and the boxes of personal belongings I had gradually assembled. Janet arrived shortly after with the closing documents and final arrangements. By 11:30, I had officially sold the house for $765,000, with the funds wired directly to my new secure account. "Do you want to leave a note?" Patricia asked, as we did a final walkthrough of my empty suite. I had already written 2 letters, one for my grandchildren explaining that I loved them deeply and would contact them when they were older. The other for Patricia, including contact information for a domestic violence support organization and enough money for a security deposit on an apartment if she chose to leave Gregory. I had no illusion that my relationship with my son could be salvaged with mere words on paper. At 2:15, Janet's assistant arrived to place the sold sign in the front yard, a visual announcement of Gregory's downfall that would greet him upon his return. I had timed everything meticulously, planning to be long gone before he discovered what had happened. At 2:30, a taxi arrived to take me to the airport. As I prepared to leave, Patricia embraced me with tears streaming down her face. "I am so sorry," she whispered. "I should have helped you sooner." "You are helping me now," I assured her. "And maybe someday, you will help yourself too." The taxi was just pulling away when Gregory's car screeched into the driveway, blocking our path. He must have driven past, seen the sold sign, and turned around immediately. The look on his face as he leaped from his car was a mixture of rage and disbelief. "Mom, what have you done?" he shouted, approaching the taxi. "Stop right there." The driver looked at me uncertainly. "Should I call the police?" "That will not be necessary," I said calmly, rolling down my window to face my son. "Gregory, the house has been sold. The new owners take possession tomorrow. I suggest you start packing." "You cannot do this," he sputtered, his face reddening. "This is my house." "Actually, it is legally mine, as you well know, since you transferred the title to my name to secure those loans. I have simply exercised my right as the owner to sell it." His expression shifted from rage to calculation. "This is crazy, Mom. You are not thinking clearly. Remember what the doctor said about your memory issues?" "There was no such Dr. Gregory. But there are real police officers who are very interested in discussing identity theft, elder abuse, and false imprisonment with you. I have filed reports about everything, including the 2 days you locked me in the bathroom." Gregory glanced around, noticing neighbors watching from their windows and porches. His voice dropped to a threatening whisper. "You will regret this. No one will believe you." I smiled, feeling genuine pity for the desperate man before me. "The evidence is quite compelling. Bank records, forged documents, witness testimony, not to mention the camera footage from the security system you installed, which shows you locking me in and refusing to let me out." His face paled as he realized I had outmaneuvered him completely. The security cameras had been his idea, installed to monitor my movements, but they had captured his crimes as well. "Where will you go?" he demanded, a hint of panic in his voice. "That is no longer your concern. Goodbye, Gregory. I hope you find your way back to the person I raised you to be." I nodded to the driver, who carefully maneuvered around Gregory's car. In the rearview mirror, I watched my son standing in the driveway of the house he no longer owned, growing smaller as we drove away. The mixture of emotions was overwhelming sorrow for what might have been relief at my escape, and determination to build something new from the ashes of betrayal. At the airport, I boarded a flight to Phoenix under my own name for the last time. By evening, I was settling into my new apartment in Scottsdale, surrounded by boxes containing the remnants of my old life and the promise of a new beginning. That night, I legally began the process of becoming Barbara Wells, leaving Myrtle Holloway behind with the pain and betrayal she had endured. My new identity would protect me from Gregory's potential retaliation, while allowing me the freedom to rebuild my life on my own terms. The irony was not lost on me that in trying to control and diminish me, Gregory had actually forced me to discover a strength and resilience I never knew I possessed. As Barbara Wells, I would create a life defined not by my role as Gregory's mother, but by my own desires and choices. The freedom was both terrifying and exhilarating, a blank canvas at 67 years old. But I had always told my students it is never too late to learn something new. Now it was time to take my own advice. From my new home, I followed the aftermath of my departure through careful monitoring of social media accounts and occasional updates from Margaret, who continued to handle the legal aspects of my case. Gregory faced serious consequences for his actions. The fraud investigation led to criminal charges, though his attorney managed to negotiate a plea deal that resulted in probation rather than jail time contingent upon full restitution of my stolen funds. His real estate business collapsed completely when investors learned of the criminal charges. Patricia filed for divorce and moved with the children to her parents' home in Oregon. The house I had sold was resold by the new owners at a profit 6 months later, a final footnote to the property that had been both prison and salvation. As months passed, I built a new routine in my senior community. Morning walks in the desert air. Coffee with neighbors who knew me only as Barbara, retired teacher from California. I joined a watercolor class and discovered a talent for capturing the vivid sunsets of Arizona on paper. I volunteered at the local library, finding purpose in helping others discover the joy of reading that had sustained me through my darkest days. The weight of betrayal gradually lightened, though it never completely disappeared. Some wounds leave permanent scars, reminders of lessons painfully learned. But with distance came perspective and eventually a measure of peace. I had survived not just physically, but emotionally. I had reclaimed my life from someone who would have gladly seen it extinguished for financial gain. That victory sustained me through moments of loneliness and doubt. From afar, I watched as everything Gregory had built through deception unraveled. Not with satisfaction, but with the sad recognition that consequences inevitably follow actions. He had taken so much from me, but in the end, I had taken back my freedom and dignity, the only things that truly mattered. 3 years passed in my new life as Barbara Wells, each season bringing greater comfort with my transformed identity. My apartment had become a true home, decorated with my watercolor paintings and photographs of Arizona landscapes. My neighbors had become friends, particularly Frank Anderson, a retired high school principal whose gentle humor and thoughtfulness gradually evolved our relationship from friendship to something more romantic, much to my surprise. At 70, I had not expected to feel the flutter of attraction again, yet Frank's presence in my life brought unexpected joy. Our standing Friday night dinner dates became the highlight of my week, and our shared interest in classic films gave us endless topics of conversation. He knew me only as Barbara, the retired teacher from California, with a mysterious past I never discussed. That barrier between my true history and present life sometimes troubled me, but I maintained it out of lingering fear of Gregory somehow tracking me down. My financial situation had stabilized after the legal proceedings concluded. Gregory had been ordered to pay restitution, though the monthly payments were small and irregular. The sale of the house had provided enough for a modest but comfortable retirement, supplemented by my teacher's pension, that I had managed to reclaim after establishing my new identity with Margaret's legal help. I had built a community among fellow residents at Desert Palms Senior Living. Tuesday morning coffee groups, Thursday book club meetings, volunteer work at the community garden all created a tapestry of connection that healed much of the isolation Gregory had forced upon me. I rarely spoke of my past, letting people assume I was simply a widow who had sought Arizona's warm climate for retirement. The blog I had started anonymously, starting over after 60, had gained an unexpected following. Without revealing identifying details, I shared my experience of rebuilding life after betrayal, offering hope to others facing similar challenges. The therapeutic value of putting my journey into words helped process lingering grief and anger. Comments from readers facing their own struggles with toxic family relationships affirmed that my story, though painful, served a purpose in helping others. Then came the email that shattered my carefully constructed new reality. Dear Grandma Myrtle, or should I say Barbara, I have been reading your blog for months without realizing it was you. Something about the writing style felt familiar, but it was the story about the elementary school Valentine's party tradition that confirmed it. Only you told that story exactly that way. I am 16 now, and I miss you every day. Please write back if you want to. I promise not to tell Dad. Love, Emma. My hands shook so violently I could barely hold the phone. My granddaughter had found me. The shock gave way to conflicting emotions, joy at reconnection with the child I had never stopped loving, fear of what this might mean for my carefully constructed safety, and wonder at how she had managed to track me down through an anonymous blog. After several days of consideration and multiple drafts, I replied confirming my identity, but asking for discretion. Emma responded immediately, with 3 years of updates: her academic achievements, her brother James's growing interest in computer programming, Patricia's new job as a nurse practitioner in Portland, and Gregory. According to Emma, her father had completed his probation period, attended court-mandated financial management and anger management classes, and was working as a sales associate at a building supply company. A humbling position for a man who once owned his own development firm, but steady employment nonetheless. She reported he seemed changed by the experience, more humble and reflective, though she was careful not to pressure me toward reconciliation. Over the next few months, Emma and I established a regular correspondence. Eventually, she asked if she and James could visit during their spring break. Patricia knew and approved of the plan, but would not accompany them, understanding my need for distance from reminders of that period of my life. After much consideration, I agreed to meet my grandchildren at a neutral location, a resort hotel in Phoenix, rather than my apartment. The reunion was everything I had hoped for and feared. Emma, now a poised young woman, rather than the child I remembered, embraced me with tears streaming down her face. James, taller than I by several inches, hung back shyly until I opened my arms to him as well. We spent 3 days together, carefully avoiding detailed discussions of Gregory while rebuilding our relationship as individuals. On their last evening, Emma finally broached the subject directly. Dad asks about you sometimes. He keeps the few pictures he has in his desk drawer. I have seen him looking at them when he thinks no one is watching. What does he say about me? I asked, uncertain if I wanted to hear the answer. That he made the biggest mistake of his life and does not know how to fix it. He is different now, Grandma. The counseling helped. Losing everything helped more, I think. I nodded, not committing to any action but acknowledging her words. People can change if they truly want to. I am glad to hear he is doing better. Before they left, I gave each of them a letter containing my real contact information, something I had never shared with anyone from my past life, except Margaret. It was a risk, but these children were innocent of their father's crimes against me. They deserved a grandmother if they wanted one. Back in my apartment after their departure, I sat on my balcony watching the sunset, turning over the implications of this reconnection. Frank joined me, bringing glasses of iced tea and his steady presence. You seem pensive tonight, he observed. Did the visit with your grandchildren not go well? It was wonderful, I assured him. But it has opened doors I thought were permanently closed. To their father, Frank asked perceptively. He knew only the basics of my past, that I had left an abusive family situation and changed my name for protection. Yes. They say he has changed, that losing everything forced him to reevaluate his life. Frank was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. In my years as a principal, I saw many troubled people claim transformation. Some were genuine, others merely performing what they thought others wanted to see. The true test is time and consistent behavior without expectation of reward. Wise words, I acknowledged. The problem is that determining which type of change Gregory has experienced would require letting him back into my life, something I am not sure I can risk. Perhaps there is middle ground, Frank suggested. A mediated meeting in a public place, a chance to assess without vulnerability. The idea took root in my mind, neither rejected nor immediately embraced. Could there be reconciliation after such profound betrayal? Should there be? These questions followed me in the weeks after Emma and James returned to Oregon. I discussed the possibility with my therapist, Dr. Reynolds, who had helped me process the trauma of Gregory's betrayal. Forgiveness does not mean forgetting or exposing yourself to further harm, she reminded me. It can simply mean releasing the power that anger has over your life. What would you do? I asked her directly. I cannot answer that for you, Barbara, but I can say that whatever you decide, it should be from a position of strength and clear boundaries, not obligation or guilt. 2 months later, after much reflection and preparation, I agreed to meet Gregory at a restaurant in San Diego neutral territory for us both. Margaret arranged for a legal observer to be present, a precaution that Gregory accepted without protest, perhaps understanding it was a consequence of his past actions. When I saw him enter the restaurant, I almost did not recognize him. Gone was the confident, borderline arrogant businessman in expensive suits. The Gregory who approached my table was thinner, his hair graying at the temples, dressed in simple khakis and a button-down shirt. His eyes, so like his father's, held a wariness and humility I had never seen before. "Mom," he said simply, remaining standing until I gestured to the chair across from me. "Gregory," I replied, neither warm nor cold. "You look well." "You look wonderful," he said, genuine surprise in his voice. "Arizona must agree with you." The initial conversation was awkward, filled with careful small talk about the weather and bland observations about the restaurant. Eventually, Gregory took a deep breath and addressed what had brought us together. "I cannot undo what I did to you. I know that. I destroyed your trust, stole from you, imprisoned you all while telling myself I was protecting the family." His voice broke slightly. "There is no excuse, no explanation that makes it acceptable. I just want you to know that I understand now the terrible harm I caused, and I live with that knowledge every day." I studied his face, looking for signs of the manipulation that had characterized our last interactions. What I saw seemed like genuine remorse, but I had been fooled before. "Why did you do it?" I asked the question that had haunted me for 3 years. "I was your mother. I would have helped you if you had simply asked." Gregory's eyes filled with tears that he quickly blinked away. Pride, desperation, a lifetime of thinking I was smarter than everyone else, that I could fix anything if I just had more time, more money. When the business started failing, I could not admit it, not to my investors, not to Patricia, not to myself. Each lie built on the previous one until I was trapped in a web of my own creation. He paused, gathering himself. "Taking your money was supposed to be temporary, just until a new deal came through. But that deal failed, and the next one too. By the time I realized I could not fix it, I was in too deep. Instead of owning up to my failures, I doubled down, convinced myself you were an obstacle rather than a victim. It was unforgivable." "Yes," I agreed quietly. "It was." "I do not expect forgiveness," he continued. "I just wanted to tell you in person how sorry I am, and that I am trying to be a better man now. For Emma and James, for myself, and to honor the way you raised me before I lost my way." The conversation continued for nearly 2 hours, Gregory answering my questions without defensiveness, sharing details of his counseling journey, his new perspective on success and failure, his efforts to rebuild relationships with his children. By the end, I did not doubt his remorse was genuine. Whether that was enough to rebuild any kind of relationship remained uncertain. As we prepared to leave, Gregory asked the question I had been expecting. Can we stay in touch letters or emails? Perhaps I would like to know how you are doing if you are willing to share that. I considered his request carefully. I will think about it. That is all I can promise today. He nodded, accepting this limited response as more than he deserved. We parted without physical contact, the distance between us still too vast for such intimacy. Back in my apartment in Scottsdale, I reflected on the meeting while sitting on my balcony with Frank beside me. The desert sunset painted the sky in dramatic oranges and purples, nature's reminder that beauty can emerge from the darkest moments. Do you regret meeting him? Frank asked gently. No, I replied after a thoughtful pause. It answered questions I needed answered. Whether it leads to more remains to be seen. The truth was that forgiveness had already begun long before our meeting, not for Gregory's benefit, but for my own. Carrying anger and resentment had become too heavy a burden, taking up space in my heart that could be filled with the joys of my new life. The meeting simply confirmed what I had begun to suspect, that Gregory, too, was on a journey of transformation separate from mine, but perhaps parallel in some ways. The ultimate lesson I had learned through this painful chapter was not about betrayal or even forgiveness, but about self-worth and resilience. Gregory had tried to diminish me, to reduce me to a resource he could exploit, but in doing so, he had inadvertently revealed my true strength. By attempting to cage me, he had forced me to discover I could fly. Sometimes you have to sell your old house to build a new home that truly belongs to you. A home not made of walls and windows, but of self-knowledge, boundaries, and the courage to begin again at any age. And as I watched the Arizona sunset with Frank's hand gently holding mine, I knew with absolute certainty that this new home I had built was stronger and more beautiful than anything that had been taken from me. If you have ever had to start over because someone betrayed your trust, I hope my story gives you courage. The journey is painful, but freedom on the other side is worth every difficult step. Have you ever had to create boundaries with family members who did not respect you? Share your experiences in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear that it is never too late to reclaim your life. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember that your worth is not determined by how others treat you, but by how you choose to rise after falling.